Okay, we're gonna just cover how to take a field bearing. And for that, the best thing to do is have a compass with a mirror on it. And so you're gonna tip the mirror down at about a 45-degree angle, and make sure that when you're sighting in on something, a faraway point, that you're holding the compass out at arm's length. So you don't wanna have the compass here. That's not very useful. So you'll see what the mirror is for in a minute. So you're gonna hold it out at arm's length, and when you do that, make sure that the base plate is flat. You don't want the base plate to be tipped up at an angle, because that could end up catching the needle on the bottom of the base plate, and then it won't spin freely. So you're gonna hold it out at arm's length and hold it flat with the mirror tipped down. Now you're gonna be sighting through this notch, the V notch, okay? You're gonna be sighting through the V notch on a distant point. And so you're gonna have to try to do two things at once. You're gonna look through the V notch at the same time as you're looking in the mirror, okay? So when I get my point firmly in view in the notch, I'm also looking in the mirror, and what the mirror does is allows me to see whether my compass needle and my shed are aligned, because that's ultimately what I need to do. So when I do this, I tend to hold my base plate with sort of my thumb and fingers, and leave my forefingers to toggle the bezel, okay? So because when you're holding it out here, it's hard to move the bezel. So that's why I use my forefingers, okay? So I'm gonna turn it with my objective firmly in view, and I'm gonna turn the bezel until I can put red, or the red end of the compass needle, into the shed. So what I should see in the mirror is that the red end of the compass needle should be sitting inside the shed. Okay, so I'm going to turn this until I can see that that's true. And now, to find out what bearing I just determined, I'm going to read it right at this point here. So I'm going to look around the dial, and I'm going to read my bearing right there at that notch.
So what's that number?
Okay, so that number is about 32 degrees. Alternatively, if I get a bearing, let's say I get a bearing off of a map, or somebody just gives me a bearing and says that I need to follow that bearing, I'm going to dial it in. So I'm going to turn the bezel until I've dialed in whatever bearing it is. So let's say somebody told me I need to do a 210 degree bearing. So that long black line there is 210 degrees. So I'm going to dial it in until it's right at the notch, that pointer right there. And then I'm going to do the same thing, only backwards. So I'm going to hold my compass out at arm's length, and I am going to keep my mirror down at about a 45-degree angle. And I'm not going to turn the compass back and forth like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my entire body until I can see that red is in the shed. And now I am pointing in the right direction. I am pointing in the direction of my 210 degree bearing. So I can just walk along, sighting through the end, through the V notch on the top of the compass. I can find some point off in the distance that is directly in line with that V notch. And I'm going to walk there. And once I get that, once I get to that point, then I'm going to repeat the process. Alternatively, if I can't see very far away, I could send a partner out and give them directions, a little bit more to the left, a little bit to the right, and get them along that line. And then I could have them stay there and I walk to them, and then we repeat the process. If there's no obvious tree or landmark that's out there in the distance to see. Okay, so again, two things that you're going to do with a compass that requires the magnetic properties of the compass. One is, if I am trying to identify what a bearing is, I'm going to hold my compass out, sight through the V notch, and then I'm going to turn with my forefingers. I'm going to turn the compass until I put red in the shed. Okay, and then I'm going to read the bearing there. The second thing I can do is I can be told what a bearing is, or I can get a bearing off of the map. I dial it in to my compass. I dial in the bearing that I was told, and then I just turn my whole entire body until red goes in the shed. And then I'll be pointing in the right direction. Okay?